Dino Crisis. This game released in 1999, coming out after Resident Evil 2, which came out in 1998 and before Resident Evil 3, 2000. They wanted to try something that isn't Resident Evil, and what they made was the same kind of game for the most part, except instead of zombies or any kind of biological monstrosity, you're facing dinosaurs and nothing but dinosaurs, as well as extremely tedious puzzles, if you can even really call some of these puzzles. There are three endings. I've only played it once, and we're gonna review it from there. I just want to show this explicit content warning real quick because I do miss when games had these. I'm not sure when they phased out. I'm not much of a story guy usually, and the one here didn't really interest me all that much. Rereading the manual's plot summary, though, you, Regina, and your team are to go to an island and retrieve a doctor who was presumed dead. You arrive on the island, and all of a sudden, dinosaurs attack. Then you play Resident Evil. A bit of spoilers, I guess, but the reason why the dinosaurs are here is because, like, some scientists tried to make an alternative energy source, but he made time distortion instead, and so because of that time distortion, dinosaurs are here now, and they killed everybody. Despite them being the cause, or at least one of the causes for the island getting fucked up, and that they're your main obstacles throughout the entire game, they don't feel very involved with the actual story. Anytime there was plot going on, the dinosaurs very rarely get mentioned outside of the first bit of the game. Gameplay wise, it's Resident Evil with the tank controls and survival horror stuff. The horror, I think, is pretty lacking, but to be honest though, it's hard for me to get scared over something that isn't paranormal or supernatural horror. Inventory and resource management are still a thing here, like in Resident Evil, despite the inventory looking like you can hold as many items as you want because of how the UI is designed. There are even color-coded item boxes that you can unlock where you can store shit. Whatever you store in the red box will appear in a red box in another area. The same goes for the rest of the colored boxes. When I first interacted with them, I thought you were only allowed to store specific types of items in them based on the wording. But no, the fucking text is misleading. You can actually store anything in any of the boxes. They just have to be unlocked. What the colors actually mean is what type of items will be inside the specific box upon unlocking it. Ammo, medicinal shit, or both. Something I wish I knew before the middle of my playthrough with this. There's a weird save mechanic here where, instead of interacting with an object in a room to save, like Resident Evil's typewriter, you have to fucking leave specific rooms to trigger the save thing. It's a little weird, but I don't actually mind it. You can do this as many times as you want, unlike the limited ink ribbons Resident Evil had. With how hard and sometimes bullshit the game can get, I found myself doing this quite a lot. Unlike the slow-ass zombies, these dinosaurs are much more dangerous in both gameplay and in concept. Zombies are mindless and sluggish, but these dinosaurs though are all capable of running at you and attacking pretty fast. Swerving around them like you can do with zombies can be much harder with the narrow walkways you're constantly in. The size of the average dino you face take up like over half the size of the actual path, meaning you've either gotta kill them fast or be smart about how you get past them. For example, you can stealth around them, or abuse the AI. I found out pretty early in the game that lasers damage neither you nor the dinosaurs. I once waited for a few minutes to see if a dinosaur would kill itself just from the lasers, only to find out upon googling that lasers don't do damage. Weird, but whatever. You don't get any form of melee attacks in this game for resource-free damage and kills like in Resident Evil, so everything you attack with is always a loss in resource. It really incentivizes the idea of having to save up your ammo, at least if you've gotten used to using your infinite knife in Resident Evil games. These kinds of difficulties is why I would probably only recommend Dino Crisis to people who've played Resident Evil games before. Dinosaurs just eat up too many bullets and are really fast. This game's also got button mashing QTE sections. I wouldn't have known to button mash during these sections had I not read that part of the manual. Also pretty cool is that if you leave certain dinosaurs and escape into certain rooms, they'll fucking follow you until you either kill them or escape to a place they're just not allowed to go to. Puzzles in survival horror games tend to be more like menial tasks than actual puzzles. Dino Crisis has both, like in Resident Evil games, and they really suck here, especially in the last act of the game. It often feels like most of the game is either puzzles and boring chores than it is actual progression and survival horror. There's no built-in mechanic of keeping track of memos in this game, so you have to keep track of them on your own either by memory or by actually writing that shit down. I actually didn't mind this weird backstep decision until I came across a late-game puzzle whose hint was at the very start of the game. They expected me to use the same method I used way back, but I completely forgot how I did it, and unfortunately I didn't write down any notes as all I did was memorize it real quick thinking that that hint would only apply to the first puzzle associated with that hint. I only found out about the solution for this through googling the memo hint itself since I didn't want the answer right away, despite search results spoiling it anyway.
Mission complete.
In conclusion, despite the shitty puzzles, there's charm in having to survive against an island full of killer dinosaurs. The high difficulty and heavy focus on resource management is cool. Maybe easy mode completely nullifies all that, I don't know. The plot is whatever, it's there. To be honest though, I think I'd have preferred the Jurassic Park approach over time distortion. This game came out in the late 90s, so I assume Jurassic Park had influence in this, and I guess they didn't want to copy the genetic engineering thing entirely. I forgot to mention that there are scenario choices, and based on which choices you pick, you get one out of the 3 or 4 endings. I doubt I'll come back to this game to get them all though. Aside from the boring third act's constant running around for puzzles and chores, the game's pretty alright.